Hey, welcome to the channel. My name is Jason, and here I talk about all things story. And it's time for episode 82 of my ongoing series, Worth 1,000 Words, where I write a 1,000 word short story inspired by a piece of artwork on the spot with no outline. This one definitely steered me in places I did not expect. Before we get into the story, one of the most influential parts of this piece, outside of the artwork, of course, is the music, especially this time. And it is an album called Trilogy, and is by Joep Beving. Hopefully I pronounced that name correctly, but it is a very nice instrumental album, completely composed of piano. So cue it up and let us check out this week's artwork. This week's artwork is titled Evening Road, and it's by an artist named Rirem, who is from Sochi, Russia. So I find myself again drawn to one that is very normal, very standard. There's no monsters, there's no aliens, there's no clashing swords or battling laser rifles. We have what appears to be a man. It could be a woman, I guess. I chose to be a man, wearing a cat helmet, riding a bike across the desert. The evening is falling, and there's just something about the composition and the colors that really caught my eye. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes the story just pops out at you, even if there's no inherent conflict or obvious cue of storytelling in the image. This one here just immediately inspired me, stirred up some imagery, some scraps of an idea for a story. Rirem, thank you for the beautiful artwork. It is very inspiring, clearly, because here I am writing a story for it. But with that said, let's see what I came up with. Through the diner window, Ash watched his bike multiply into waveforms of molten chrome. The peaks and valleys spiked a melody he couldn't quite place. The simplicity of it told him piano, but it could have just been the jukebox at the far end of the diner, near the door, playing a sad tune he couldn't quite place either. Two mysteries, intertwined somehow with the one in his head, with the one somewhere down the highway, where families of cacti stood by the road as if waiting for a ride. Nice ride, the waitress said, the two words bisected by a bubble pop. Ash didn't look at her, still keen on finding the melody. Not as nice as the helmet, though, she said, followed by a snort, which was enough for him to lose everything again. Or did she lose him? Thanks, Ash said. The waitress refilled his coffee. Looks too small for you. It is. She pushed a plate of pie to clink against the plate of uneaten strawberry pancakes. You like cats? Not really. You don't like to talk much, do you? Ash rubbed his eyes and divided the pancake in two, put one half on a napkin, leaving the other on the plate, which he pushed across the table. Sorry, he said. Why don't you sit? The waitress, whose name tag read Mandy, blushed. She put her hand to her mouth of plump crimson lips and fanned manicured fingernail-shaped claws. I can't. I'm still on the clock. Ash looked behind him at the empty booth stretching to the door, then at the ones in front of him, deliberately, almost in slow motion. But mostly he watched her cat-eyed eyes watch him. I don't think anyone would mind, he said. And I don't like pancakes. I don't understand, sir, she said. I don't either. Sir? Ash checked on his bike again in the empty parking lot. Dull, the approaching twilight sucking the color out of it. A sustained note swelled across the headlight, but it wasn't enough. Not that any of it had been enough. I'm from Colorado, he said. That's a long ways away. It is. Why are you so far from home with a helmet that's too small? Ash slammed his hands on the table and laughed. Silverware backflipped, and plates gave the same maneuver a good try. He massaged his eye sockets while the echo of their music played in his head. Because I like cats, I guess. Mandy backed away from the table, scribbling something on her order pad. Oh, I don't want anything else, he said. But thank you. Her mouth smiled, but her eyes didn't. Nervous habit. Tell me about it. Sir? She was beautiful. I'd like you to sit across from me, enjoy this half pancake and the slice of pie you so generously brought over, and tell me about it. This nervous habit of yours. She was comforting. And tell me how a lovely woman like yourself finds her in the middle of the desert, working at some lonely diner. Mandy stared. I'm sorry, he said. I do like strawberry pie, though. Thank you. He cut the end of the slice with his fork, and it broke the crust cleanly. Then the strawberry goo, and finally the strawberries without the rest of it spilling across the plate. He brought the bite to his mouth and chewed, watching his bike outside, the heat waves flatlined. He sipped his coffee, whose bitterness cut his teeth. He went for his water. The glass was empty, but the seat across from him was not. Mandy sat there with perfect posture. He squared his shoulders and straightened his spine to meet her gaze. She pushed a fresh glass of water to him. The ice cubes caught in a vortex. Ash re-energized that vortex when he picked up the glass, spying Mandy's fractured visage through it, and he thought he saw the waveform manifest again. I make pie every morning, Mandy said. I come in early even, before my shift technically starts. I work in the dark so Charlie doesn't think I'm trying to get overtime. Who's Charlie? He owns the place, runs the kitchen. I see. So, she said, glancing at her hands at the table and the napkin she twisted the corner from. Who's in Colorado? Who? What? I meant, what? Nothing. No one. Not even a cat? Ash grinned and tore the corner off his napkin. Not anymore. I'm sorry. Why do you say that? She shrugged. I don't know. Felt right. Do you like music? He asked. I do. What kind? The setting sun cast her in strawberry pancake pink. Oh, all kinds. Oh. Something wrong? No. All right. You know what? She said. I don't like pancakes either, especially strawberry ones. I didn't think you did. She looked up at him. Why's that? Because I don't. She smiled with lipstick-tipped teeth. Having something in common is a good thing. He nodded, then decided to try the pancake. Soggy, syrup already crystallizing, a mouthful of mud and glass. Mandy's mouth made the shape of an upside-down U, then made wrinkles that cracked the shell of her makeup. I thought you didn't like pancakes. I had to try again. He swallowed down the rest of the coffee and picked up the helmet, standing. He fished money out of his pocket and put it on the edge of the table. Thanks again, Mandy. For what? For reminding me I like cats. Her laugh was as nervous as her notepad scribbles. You're funny. She thought so too. Ash forced the helmet over his head, where it smashed his burning ears and viced his skull to play nothing but white noise. Through the helmet's visor, Ash watched Mandy swirl with the imperfections of the polycarbonate as she looked at the stupid cat ears atop his helmet. There was no melody, so he got on his bike to look for one. Welcome to the end, dear viewer. I am so glad you made it. This is where I talk about my final thoughts, what I liked, what I didn't like, maybe what I learned, and just kind of deconstructing the story a little bit. So let us dig into the writing here. So I did something here that I don't do often. I do it sometimes, but not that often, and that is tell most of the story outside of what you're seeing in the artwork. So the artwork itself is, it appears to be a man wearing a motorcycle helmet with cat ears, driving through the desert. Looks like the sun is setting. It's a very picturesque illustration, albeit stylized. I enjoyed it. It gave me kind of a nice, when you're sitting on the side of the road, maybe on a road trip, taking a break, going into a diner, and then just gazing out that window at the expanse of nothing. There's a strange meditative feeling about that gets you thinking about things. Maybe life, maybe yourself, maybe all kinds of things. And that is essentially what happened to this story. And so I immediately kick it off with this man named Ash, who is gazing through the diner window, looking at his bike. And there's a bit of subtext here where he's seeing a visual waveform, right? And that is one downside of this story, is I added a musical element to it, just kind of at the beginning and then at the very end. But I didn't really hint at anything as to why he would perceive the world that way. So I think that is one failing for sure, is that because I'm telling the story through his point of view, and I'm using musical descriptions or descriptions a musician might describe or see the world, that would have been important to do. But anyway, so we established two mysteries. One that he can't quite place the melody, and then the one in his head with the one somewhere down the highway where families of cacti stood by the road as if waiting for a ride. So he's contemplating something, something that is far away. And then we transition into the waitress here who's talking about his nice ride. And here I hint at it. I don't quite talk about what the helmet looks like until the very end of the entire thing. And she tells him the helmet looks too small for him. And it is, he agrees. And so this is essentially, I don't know, when I saw this, it appeared to be a guy riding this bike. And I can't imagine why a guy would ride a motorcycle helmet with cat ears, but this is what we have. And so I guess what I imagined is that this guy lost a woman. He lost his love or girlfriend or whatever it may be. And he is off searching for her. He's wearing the helmet, the only memento that he has left of her. And he's taken to the road to find her. And here is where we get the first indication of the cat thing, which I don't explain, but you know, you like cats? Not really. And then you can see she's prodding him. They're alone in this diner, and he realizes that. He sees something in her, and he rubs his eyes, and he actually cuts the pancake in two and offers it to her, and he said, hey, why don't you sit across from me? And then they get into a bit of a strange conversation where she's saying, I can't, I'm still working. Seeing that the place is entirely empty, he says, I don't think anyone would mind, and he doesn't like pancakes, which is another confusing thing. Why did he order pancakes? I don't know. We will find out, apparently. And you can see here that Ash is not really thinking at all about the pancakes because she's confused, understandably so. I don't understand, sir. I don't either. And she's just pretty much confused. And then he looks back out at his bike, and there's more subtext of his mental state. When his bike's color is dull, the approaching twilight sucking the color out of it. A sustained note swelled across the headlight, but it wasn't enough. Not that any of it had been enough. And then he just starts talking about himself. He's from Colorado, and they're having some small talk here, and that leads her to ask him, you know, well, what are you doing here? And why are you wearing a helmet that's too small? And he's kind of laughing out of frustration at this point, saying, you know, he likes cats, and this kind of frightens her. And it's funny because when I was originally working through the story, I started to take this in a really weird direction. He was almost being confrontational, almost in a creepy way. But then I backed up because it seems like so many of my stories end up violent or dark or something like that. And I really didn't want to go that way with this. I wanted to see the initial spark of the idea all the way through to the end. This is when we first have an indication where he's thinking about something. He's thinking about this woman. And the reason why I came up with this idea is he's almost seeking a replacement for this woman he lost. He's looking out this window. He's looking at his hope just dwindle with the very sunlight. And there's this lone beautiful woman, or maybe she's not beautiful. Maybe he's sort of caught up in the moment. But he offers her, you know, hey, sit across from me and enjoy this half a pancake, and then tell me about it. Tell me this nervous habit of yours. And here again, here's another secondary declarative statement that she was comforting. So he's feeling at ease with her. He's thinking naively so that maybe she could be a replacement, this complete stranger that he met. And there's just something about, like I said, when you're looking out this diner, you're looking at this beautiful sunset, you're alone. There's just something about the emptiness of the landscape, and I don't know, maybe it's putting him in a different headspace. And so he's almost like fantasizing in real time here, thinking like, well, maybe I could settle down here. Maybe I could take this girl away from this place. And that is why he is talking about, and tell me how a lovely woman like yourself finds herself in the middle of a desert working at some lonely diner. And she is just flabbergasted. She just stares. And then he apologizes, talks about that he does like the strawberry pie, you know, that she so generously brought over. And then once he takes that bite, another bit of subtext, he brought the bite to his mouth and he chewed, watching his bike outside the heat waves flatline. So the waveform is dead now. Any kind of indication of the song he was seeking that perhaps reminded him of her is now gone. And another indication here is when she gives him the glass of water. He re-energized the vortex when he picked up the glass, spying Mandy's fractured visage through it, and he thought he saw the waveform manifest again. So that's really the first indication, at least to the reader, that he's thinking of her as a replacement. He's thinking of her as sort of the music in his life, the one that is going to replace the one he has lost. And here we have some more endearing traits of Mandy, where she comes in early off the clock to make this pie every morning. Because she doesn't want to get in trouble by Charlie, who's her boss, thinking that she's trying to get some overtime. And now she kind of senses what's happening here. She's comfortable, she's sitting there, she's at ease, and she's asking, mistakenly, who's in Colorado. And then she says, what? I meant what? Nothing. No one, he responds. And then not even a cat. So you can see her slowly getting even more comfortable. She's kind of making these light jokes in conversation, even though she was just a moment ago kind of taken aback by his behavior. And there's another thing here. There's a shared action that they both do, and that is tearing the corner of a napkin and twisting it, which he does after they have a brief exchange here when he answers her question. He also tears the corner off his napkin. So I think there's a power and kind of like a mirrored action there. Again, actions speak louder than words, and I try to do that a lot. I'm really trying to minimize dialogue, make sure that I'm not overusing it, that if I can convey something by action, it is so much more powerful. It adds another layer to the text. And she apologized, and here he gives it one more shot. So this is another aspect where I added music, and he asks her, he's like, all right, well, maybe we have something in common. Maybe she could replace this girl I lost. So he asks her, do you like music? And she says, I do. And he's like, oh, okay, kind of perks up. What kind? And he was disappointed because maybe he is one of those guys, or he's clearly one of those guys who has a very narrow view on music, because she excitedly says, oh, all kinds. And he says, oh. And clearly something is wrong by his response. But she brings it back, right? She sees this little game, or she subconsciously senses this game they're having here, this flirtation, where she admits she doesn't like pancakes either, especially strawberry ones. But he already knows that they're not for each other, because he immediately says, I didn't think you did. She looks up at him, why is that? And he says, because I don't. And so again, more reading between the lines will tell you that he is trying to tell her something where she doesn't quite get it. And this, I thought, was an interesting image where she smiles with lipstick tipped teeth, kind of illustrating her, I don't want to say sloppiness, but her youthfulness, maybe a bit of ugliness that he is looking at directly. It is an indication to the reader of his mental state when he's looking at her across the table. But she says having something in common is a good thing, which is a direct contrast to his observation. And I think not only that conveys his mental state, how he feels about her, but also the kind of person he is. And he finally decides to try it because he knows he doesn't like it. He's trying to distance himself from her essentially by eating this pancake that he's already stated he doesn't like, and he knows she doesn't like, but it tastes like mud and glass. And the very final bit of information from his perspective of why he finds her unattractive now is that when she does frown, the wrinkles crack the shell of her makeup. So before he said she was beautiful, she was comforting, she seems to be youthful, but with the lipstick on her teeth and her makeup cracking her by her smile, that is, again, cementing what he thinks of her, essentially, at this point. And she asks him, she's like, she says, I thought you didn't like pancakes, and he had to try again, right? Because something in that reminds him of his lost love, and so he is trying to find that love again, or that feeling again, to be inspired to go search for her. And he gets up, he leaves, and she reminded him that he liked cats. So, and this is a situation where I'm sure you can imagine, maybe you've been in a situation like this in your past where you're kind of fantasizing about replacing maybe the person you're with because things aren't quite right, or maybe you're with nobody and you're meeting this lone person. You're kind of thinking about, like, what would a life be like with them? And so that's really what I was trying to explore in this story. Some guy searching for a woman who kind of ran out on him, abandoned him, left him. We don't quite know all the details to it. And he stops randomly just to have some food, maybe these pancakes or something that she liked. And so he thought, maybe if I try it, it will put me in the right headspace, or maybe he's just doing it to torture himself. I don't know. But then amid all of that, unexpectedly, he finds some comfort in this waitress. He kind of imagines himself with her, and maybe he needs to stay here, maybe he needs to settle down, maybe he needs to whisk her away from this place. But it doesn't work out. He realizes that the one who got away is the one he truly needs to keep looking for. And so this is when he finally puts the helmet, he forces the helmet over his head, where it smashes his burning ears and invites his skull to play nothing but white noise, not the music he seeks. And then finally he watches her, and this is kind of a mirror from the beginning when he's looking through the diner window at his bike that is being warped in the heat waves. He sees her through the imperfections in the polycarbonate, which are essentially like the heat waves outside originally, as she looked at the stupid cat ears atop his helmet. So the line before the last line is when I finally tell you about the cat ears. But he finds no melody, So he got on his bike to go look for one. So like I said, that one took me unexpected places. I also told it mostly off of the artwork. So really the image you see is that moment when Ash is leaving. He's leaving the diner, he's leaving Mandy behind, and he's going out searching for something or someone he has lost. There's something fun about writing these quiet moments, these simple conversations between two people. I think it's a great exercise and especially a great opportunity to practice subtext through action, through dialogue, through any means you can. And we can see that he was almost getting lost in a fantasy before the scene turned and he snapped out of it, finding all the things about this woman, seeing all of her flaws, at least to him, and he decided he had to keep going on. So I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, let me know in the comments. If you didn't like it, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear feedback. I'm always trying to get better, just like all of you out there, I'm sure. So thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And keep reading, keep writing, and I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye. If you'd like to read the story in its non-video format, check the link in the description. I didn't edit anything else, promise. Thanks again.